The line she used most often at family dinners was, "At my age, everything hurts and nothing works. But the Wi-Fi is finally fast enough to complain about it." It always landed. It had been landing for years. Her daughter would laugh and her son-in-law would shake his head in that fond way people shake their heads at someone they've stopped worrying about. And the table would reset into warmth, and the moment that had been slightly heavy, the mention of the knee, the reference to the nights that were harder than she let on, would pass, dissolved by the joke, the way a knot of tension gets rubbed out and then forgotten. Norma had been doing this for so long that she'd stopped noticing she was doing it. She noticed on a Sunday evening in October. She was in the living room with her granddaughter, Emma, who was 20 and home for fall break from a university in Indiana, and Emma was telling her about something that had happened, a project she'd been working on for most of the semester, something that mattered to her, that had not gone the way she'd worked for it to go. She was telling it with her hands in her lap and her eyes on the window, and Norma could see, in the set of her jaw and the specific quality of her stillness, that it had hurt. And then Emma said, "Whatever, it's fine. I'm probably being dramatic." She said it with a small laugh. She looked at Norma. "You know how I am." Norma looked at her. She knew exactly how she was. Because she was looking at herself at 20. Not the specifics, the project, the university, the particular disappointment, but the laugh, the whatever, it's fine. The performing of smallness so the real size of the thing couldn't be felt by anyone in the room. She'd taught her that. Not with words, with 30 years of dinner table demonstrations. She sat in the armchair across from her granddaughter and felt something she hadn't expected to feel, which was afraid. If this kind of story, not a crisis, just a woman in an armchair on an October evening who suddenly sees what she's been passing down, lands somewhere for you, subscribe. We look at real human situations here, the ones that arrive quietly and change things. Her name was Norma Callahan, and she was 74, and she was, by general family consensus, the best person to have at any gathering. This was not an empty compliment. She had actual skill. She could walk into a room where two people weren't speaking and within 30 minutes have both of them laughing about something unrelated and looking at each other like they'd forgotten what the problem was. She could take a piece of news that was complicated, a job loss, a health thing, something that required navigating, and hold it in such a way that it stayed serious without becoming crushing. She had a gift for the right sentence at the right moment, the one that shifted the air in a room. Her family loved her for it. They also, without deciding to, relied on it. Her daughter Beth had called her in 2019 when the situation with Beth's husband Richard had been at its most difficult. And Norma had listened and had said the right things, and had also, at a certain point, said something about her own experience that was funny in a way that allowed Beth to breathe again, and the conversation to move into slightly lighter air. Beth had said, "Mom, you always know what to say." She'd meant it as love. It was love. It was also, Norma would think about later, a door that got closed. Her son-in-law Richard, having survived the difficult period and come back into good standing, called her his good luck charm and meant it affectionately. He thought of her as someone who fundamentally didn't suffer. She'd been letting him think that for 11 years. Her grandson Tyler, who was 23 and in Portland, called every few weeks, and the calls were good, and she made him laugh and he made her laugh, and at the end of every call he said, "You're the best, Grandma." And she felt the warmth of it, and also, faintly, the particular aloneness of being seen only through the best-facing side. Emma was the youngest. She'd been close to Norma in the specific way of a youngest grandchild who had spent more time at the grandmother's house than the others, who had grown up in the particular warmth of Norma's kitchen and Norma's humor and Norma's way of being in the world. Which was exactly the problem. Emma had been home since Thursday. She'd arrived the way she arrived, slightly compressed by the semester, making herself easy immediately, helping with dinner without being asked, asking the right questions about everyone's week. She was a good kid. She was a kid who had learned to make herself easy. Norma had watched her across the dinner table on Friday evening and had seen something she hadn't had the frame for until Sunday. Emma was performing. Not in a bad way, not dishonestly, just in the way of someone who has learned that their role in a room involves managing the room's temperature and who does this so automatically they've stopped noticing it's a performance at all. On Saturday, Norma had mentioned her knee. She'd been having trouble with it for 6 weeks, a grinding thing that was worse in the morning and that she'd been going to appointments about without telling anyone because the appointments had not yet produced a clear answer, and she didn't want to be a topic. She'd mentioned it as a throwaway, the way she always mentioned things, wrapped in the sentence that neutralized it. She'd said, "My knee has been giving me grief. I told it if it didn't behave, I was getting the other one involved." Beth had laughed. Richard had laughed. Emma had smiled and said, "What is actually going on with it?" Norma had pivoted. She'd said something about doctors and their waiting rooms and the reading material, which was 12 years out of date, and the moment had passed. Emma had looked at her, just for a second, and then she'd let the moment pass too. Norma thought about that look on Sunday evening, sitting across from Emma after the "whatever, it's fine." She thought, she learned to let it pass from me. She didn't say anything that Sunday evening. She tried. She opened her mouth twice and closed it again because the thing she wanted to say required a register she hadn't used in so long she wasn't sure she still had access to it. Her usual mode was available and ready. The warm redirect, the story that made things lighter, the joke that let everyone breathe. What she needed was something else, something that would require her to stay in the hard part of the conversation instead of getting everyone out of it. And that was not a thing she knew how to do on a Sunday evening without preparation. She said she was tired and was going to bed early. Emma said goodnight, and Norma went to her room and sat on the edge of the bed and looked at the wall. She'd moved into this house, Beth and Richard's house, the guest room, 18 months ago. She'd been in her own house for 31 years, and she'd loved it, and the logistics of aging in a house that was larger than she needed had finally tipped, and Beth had asked, and Norma had said yes. The move had been smooth. She'd made it smooth, had made the adjustment visible as something manageable and even amusing, and the result was that nobody had worried about her, and she had moved into a guest room and been grateful, and also, some mornings, acutely aware of the particular privacy that evaporates when you live in someone else's house. She hadn't said that to anyone. She'd said, "I finally have someone to blame when the towels run out." She sat on the bed and thought about Emma's laugh. The "whatever, it's fine." The performed smallness. She thought, "I am 74 years old, and I am sitting on a bed in my daughter's guest room, and I do not know how to ask to be heard without making it a joke first." She'd been doing it so long. Since she was young, she could trace it back to her own mother, who had been difficult in the specific way of depressive mothers, whose moods had required management, in whose presence the children had learned early that their feelings were things to be handled, and the best way to handle a feeling was quickly and lightly, and with a laugh that said, "It's nothing. You don't have to worry. Everything's fine." She'd taken it out of that house and carried it for 50 years. She'd passed it to Emma without meaning to. She lay down in the bed and looked at the ceiling and thought about what Emma had said. "I want to be strong like you." That was what she'd said 2 years ago, during a conversation Norma had almost forgotten. Emma had been 18 and going through something, and Norma had been at her best, which was to say she'd been funny and warm and had said the right things and had made Emma laugh at a moment when laughing had felt like relief. And Emma had said, "I want to be strong like you, Grandma. You never let things get to you." Norma had smiled. She should have said, "I let things get to me. I just don't let anyone see it." She hadn't. She'd smiled and said something, and the moment had moved on. She lay in the dark and thought about what that moment had passed along. She talked to her friend Dolores on Monday morning. They'd been friends for 40 years, since their kids were small and they'd lived 3 houses apart, and had formed the particular friendship of 2 women who have witnessed each other across enough of life's surface area that there's no point pretending anymore. Dolores was 72 and had a sharper tongue than Norma, and considerably less patience for social performance, which was one of the reasons Norma called her when she needed someone to actually talk to. She told Dolores about Emma and the Sunday evening and the laugh. Dolores listened without interrupting, which was not her default mode, which meant she was taking it seriously. "You're surprised?" she said when Norma finished. "I shouldn't be," Norma said. "No," Dolores said. "You shouldn't. She grew up watching you." "I know." "You've been doing the joke thing since I've known you," Dolores said. "I've been watching you not ask for help for 40 years. Norma was quiet. "Did you ever tell me how the knee actually is?" Dolores said. Norma thought about this. "It's been bad," she said. "The grinding, the mornings are—" She stopped. She felt, in the stopping, the specific resistance of a habit that runs deep. "The mornings are hard. I've been up at 5 a few times because I couldn't get comfortable, and I've just sat in the kitchen and waited for it to ease, and I haven't told anyone because I don't want to be—" "A burden?" Dolores said. "That word sounds pathetic when you say it out loud." "It sounds accurate," Dolores said. "And yes, it also sounds exhausting." A pause. "What are you going to do about Emma?" Norma looked at the kitchen window. Beth's kitchen, the morning light, the neighbor's fence. "I think I need to tell her something true," she said. "That sounds right," Dolores said. "I don't know how," Norma said. "I've been doing the other thing for so long that the true thing doesn't—" She stopped again. "It doesn't come out as a sentence. It comes out wanting to be a joke. So start with that," Dolores said. "Tell her, I'm going to try to say something true, and my instinct is going to be to make it a joke, and I'm asking you to let me not do that." Norma sat with this. "That's a good line," she said. "You're welcome," Dolores said. The Thanksgiving dinner was at Beth and Richard's. This was the 4th year. Beth cooked with the focused energy of someone who finds cooking meditative, and the dinner had always been good, generous and warm, and the particular kind of noisy that means everyone is comfortable. Tyler had driven down from Portland. Emma was still home from her break. Beth's sister Carol was there with her husband. The whole table. Norma had been at family dinners for 30 years doing what she did. Arriving, making it warmer, saying the right things, keeping the temperature even. She'd done it when she was younger and when it had been easier, and also, now, when it cost more than it used to. She sat at the table and felt the slight effort of it, and smiled, and said the things, and the table did what the table always did when she was at it. Midway through dinner, Richard made a comment about work. Something that wasn't quite a complaint and wasn't quite a joke, the kind of thing that was looking for a landing place. Norma started to say something. She had the sentence ready. Light, warm, would make him laugh, would move the conversation forward. She stopped. She looked at Emma, who was looking at her. Emma had the slight expression of a person who has learned to watch for what's coming. Norma recognized it because she'd worn that expression at dinners her whole childhood, watching her own mother and reading the room. She said, "Richard, that sounds like it was genuinely hard. How are you doing with it?" The table shifted slightly. Not badly, just the shift of a room that's been offered a different register than it expected. Richard looked at her, and his face changed slightly. The way faces change when someone asks them a real question instead of a skillfully pleasant one. "Honestly, it's been a rough stretch," he said. "More than I've let on." They talked about it. Really talked, not skimmed. Beth listened and said things. Tyler asked questions. The table stayed warm, but it was the warmer of real attention, not the warmer of a joke that had dissolved something. Emma looked at Norma across the table. Norma looked back. Nothing was said, but something was acknowledged. Drop a comment below. Have you ever been the person in the room doing the job of making everything easier? Sometimes it helps just to name it. We'll be here. After dinner, after the plates were cleared and Tyler had commandeered the remote, and Beth and Carol were in the kitchen with the particular efficiency of sisters cleaning up, Norma and Emma ended up on the back porch. It was cold for November, but the kind of cold that's clean rather than harsh. Emma had a blanket from inside. Norma had her cardigan, which was not enough, but she didn't say so. They sat for a minute without talking. "You did something different at dinner," Emma said. "I know." Emma looked at the yard. "With Richard." "I was going to make a joke," Norma said. "I had the joke ready, and I didn't." "Why not?" Norma thought about Dolores's sentence. She thought about Emma on Sunday evening. The whatever, it's fine. "Can I tell you something?" she said. Emma turned to look at her. "I'm going to try to say something true," Norma said. "And I want to warn you that my instinct is going to be to make it a joke at some point. I'm asking you to let me not do that." Emma's expression changed. Something in it opened slightly. "Okay," she said. Norma looked at the yard. "I've been doing the joke thing for a very long time," she said, "since I was probably younger than you are now. I grew up in a house where the feelings were large, and the way to survive them was to make them small quickly, to laugh before anyone had to deal with them." She paused. "I got very good at it, and I brought it with me when I grew up, and I've been doing it in this family for 30 years, and everyone loves me for it, and I've let them love me for it, and not one of them, not Beth, not Tyler, not Richard, actually knows what I feel about most things." Emma was very still. "I've been lonely," Norma said. The word landed differently than she'd expected. Not catastrophically, just plainly, like something that had been waiting a long time to be a word rather than a condition. "Not because anyone has been unkind to me, because I've made it very hard for anyone to be kind to me. Because every time something was real, I made it funny, and everyone laughed, and then it was over, and I was still carrying it." She stopped. She expected the joke to arrive, some protective mechanism, some sentence that would turn this into something lighter. She held it back. "The knee thing," she said. "It's been bad. 6 weeks. I've been up at 5 in the morning some days just sitting in the kitchen waiting for it to ease. I haven't told anyone because I don't want to be—" She stopped. "A burden," Emma said. "Yes." Emma was quiet. She had her arms wrapped around the blanket, and she was looking at her grandmother with an expression Norma didn't think she'd ever seen on that face before. Not pity, something more careful than pity. "I didn't know any of that," Emma said. "I know," Norma said. "I worked hard to make sure you didn't." A long pause. "I want to ask you something," Emma said. "And you can tell me if it's not—" "Ask," Norma said. "Were you lonely when Grandpa died?" Norma looked at the yard. Her husband Frank had died 8 years ago. She'd been at her best, in the weeks and months after, in the way that people who are very practiced at managing the feelings of rooms around them are sometimes at their best in the moments that would level anyone else. She'd been the one who held things together. Beth had cried, and Norma had held her. Tyler had not known how to be present, and Norma had made it easy for him to be. She'd managed the estate, and the services, and the paperwork, and the subsequent logistics of a life that needed to be reorganized after a person left it. She'd cried alone. "Yes," she said. Emma closed her eyes. "I didn't know that," she said, again, quiet. "Nobody did," Norma said. "I was very careful." They sat in the cold for a moment. I do the same thing, Emma said. She said it to the yard. The Sunday thing. What I said. Whatever, it's fine. I've been doing that for a while now. I know, Norma said. That's why I'm telling you this. Emma turned to look at her. That's not... You're telling me because you don't want me to... I'm telling you, Norma said, because I looked at you on Sunday and I saw myself at 20 and I was afraid. Not for myself, for you. She paused. It's a useful thing to be able to do. The lightning, the joke. It gets you through a lot of rooms, and it keeps people comfortable, and it means nobody ever worries about you. She stopped. It also means nobody ever really knows you, and by the time you notice the difference, you've been doing it for 50 years. Emma was quiet. I don't want that for you, Norma said. I should have said it sooner. I should have said it 10 years ago. I've been showing you the wrong lesson. Emma looked at her hands. You were showing me how to be strong, she said. I was showing you how to be invisible, Norma said, and calling it strength. The porch was cold and the backyard was dark, and Thanksgiving was happening inside the lit house behind them, the sounds of it faint through the glass. I had no idea, Emma said. She said it again, the third time, and each time it had a different weight. The first time was about the knee. The second was about the grief. The third was about all of it. About 30 years of dinners and the person at the end of the table who made everyone laugh and who was, all along, also tired. I know, Norma said. Emma reached over and took her grandmother's hand, not a gesture she'd been working toward, just the specific, unrehearsed thing that hands do when they want to close a distance. Norma felt it, and held it, and did not make a joke. They sat there for a few minutes. Beth came to the back door and looked out. You two are going to freeze, she said. We're fine, Emma said. She said it, and then she stopped, and Norma saw her feel the phrase, and Emma said, Actually, Mom... Can you come out for a second? Beth looked at them. She stepped onto the porch. She looked between her mother and her daughter. What's going on? I need to tell you something, Norma said, about the knee, and some other things. Beth looked at her. She'd been looking at her mother her whole life with the particular expression of a person who loves someone and has also, somewhere in the loving, learned not to press too hard, because the pressing too hard always got deflected. Norma had trained her. Not cruelly, not on purpose, but thoroughly. Beth sat down on the porch step. Tell me, she said. Norma told her. Not all of it. Not the 50 years, not the full history, not the architecture of a habit built in childhood and maintained across a lifetime. But the knee, plainly. The mornings. The appointment that hadn't produced answers yet, and the second appointment that was in 2 weeks and that she'd been planning to attend alone. I'll come with you, Beth said. You don't have to, Mom. Beth's voice. The real version of it. The one that didn't need managing. I'll come with you. Norma looked at her daughter. 50 years of managing this daughter's comfort. 50 years of making sure Beth didn't have to worry about her. 50 years of the joke that neutralized the thing. Okay, she said. Thank you. Beth reached out and touched her arm. You should have said something, she said. I know, Norma said. I'm saying it now. The dinner reconvened. They went inside, all three of them, and the kitchen was warm and Tyler was involved in a dispute with Carol's husband about something on television, and Richard was doing the dishes, which he always did at the end of Thanksgiving, with the cheerful efficiency of a man who has accepted the dishes as his domain. Norma sat at the table. She watched the room. She'd watched rooms her whole life, and she was watching this one differently, not with the readiness of a person who is waiting to manage it, but with something closer to the ease of a person who is just in it. Tyler came over and sat across from her. "You okay?" he said. He said it the way he said it, slightly casual, slightly checking. "My knee has been giving me trouble," she said. "Your mom's going to come with me to the appointment." Tyler looked at her. "How long has it been bad?" 6 weeks. "Why didn't you say?" She thought about the dinner table joke, the Wi-Fi line, the long habit of it. "I'm saying now," she said. Tyler looked at her for a moment with the expression he'd had since he was small, the one that looked like his grandfather's expression, the particular quality of attention that men in her family had when something was actually landing. "Does it hurt right now?" "A little," she said. He got up and went to the cabinet and found the ibuprofen and brought it to the table with a glass of water. "Here," he said. She looked at the ibuprofen on the table. It was such a small thing. It was such a profoundly small thing. A grandson, a cabinet, a glass of water, a gesture that required nothing from her. She'd spent 50 years making gestures like that unnecessary by pretending she didn't need them. "Thank you," she said. She took the ibuprofen. Tyler sat back down. "You're going to have to keep doing that," he said. "Saying things. None of us are good at noticing on our own. You've trained us not to." Norma looked at him. "I know," she said. "But we want to," he said. "If you tell us." She looked at the table, the dishes and the remnants of Thanksgiving and the people moving around the kitchen. "Okay," she said. The appointment was in December. Beth came. She sat in the waiting room with Norma and then, when the doctor said she could, in the examination room, the way Norma had sat with her children at appointments when they were small. The doctor explained the options: a cortisone injection, a referral to physical therapy, monitoring. Nothing catastrophic, nothing that required immediate action, but real and needing attention. Beth asked 3 questions. Good questions, practical, specific. Norma answered them when the doctor looked at her. In the car afterward, Beth said, "I'm glad I came." "Me too," Norma said. "Mom." Beth drove for a moment. "I've been thinking about what you said on the porch, about being lonely." Norma looked at the road. "I didn't know," Beth said. "After Dad died, I thought you were so capable. I thought you were okay." "I was performing okay," Norma said. "I should have pushed harder." "I would have deflected harder," Norma said. "That's not on you. That's on a dynamic I built over a very long time." She paused. "What you can do is what you've been doing since the porch. Ask the real question instead of accepting the joke." Beth was quiet. "I can do that," she said. "The jokes aren't going away," Norma said. "I want to be clear about that. The Wi-Fi joke is still funny. I'm going to keep using it." Beth laughed. "Good," she said. "It's a good joke." "It is a good joke," Norma agreed. "I'm just going to try to say the real thing first sometimes, and then the joke second, so that both can be true at the same time." Christmas came. The family came together the way they always did, with the particular architecture of a family holiday that has accumulated its own traditions, the specific foods, the specific timing, the things that were jokes because they'd become jokes across enough years of repetition. Norma made the thing she always made. She sat at the table she always sat at. But the table was slightly different. Tyler asked her how the knee was before he asked anything else. Emma sat near her, and during a moment when the table got loud and chaotic, Emma looked at her and said quietly, "You doing okay?" Not performing, just asking. Norma looked at her. "My knee hurts," she said. "The PT is helping, but it's slow." "That sounds frustrating," Emma said. "It is," Norma said. They sat with that for a moment. Not dissolved, not made smaller, just held for a second by a woman who was learning not to drop it immediately. Then Norma said, "Though on the upside, I've now watched every episode of 3 different true crime series at 5 in the morning, and I'm prepared to solve most cold cases in the tri-state area." Emma laughed, really laughed. "That's the Norma I know," she said. "She's still here," Norma said. "She just has company now." Dolores came for coffee in January. She came the way she'd been coming for 40 years. No announcement, a specific knock, the understanding that the door was open. She sat at the kitchen table in Beth's house and looked around at it with the pragmatic acceptance of a woman who has watched her friend navigate life's reorganizations and trusts that Norma knows what she's doing. "How did Christmas go?" she said. Norma poured the coffee. "Better than I expected," she said. "Tyler asked about the knee before he took his coat off. Emma sat near me." "Good," Dolores said. "Beth came to the appointment," Norma said. Dolores looked at her. "You told them," she said. "Some of it," Norma said. "The porch, Thanksgiving, the knee, the mornings." She paused. "Some of the other stuff, the Frank stuff." Dolores was quiet. "That was a big thing," she said. "I know." Norma sat down with her coffee. "I keep waiting to feel like I did it wrong, like I made it too heavy or asked for too much." She looked at her mug. "I don't feel that way. I just feel like something's different, like the air changed." "It did," Dolores said. "You let them in." "They were already in," Norma said. "I just stopped hiding in front of them." Dolores looked at her. The look of 40 years of friendship, the specific seeing of a person who has known you long enough to know the difference between what you say and what's true. "You still funny?" she said. Norma looked at her. "The other day Tyler came in to tell me he'd accidentally started the dishwasher with the wrong cycle and all the mugs came out cloudy," she said. "And I said, 'Great, now they match my eyesight.'" Dolores made the sound she made when something landed. "Good," she said. "I was worried you'd gone sincere permanently." "There are limits," Norma said. They drank their coffee. The January morning was outside the window, the particular flat gray of Ohio in January that makes the kitchen warmth feel deliberate and earned. Chester was barking at something down the street. Norma could hear Beth moving around somewhere upstairs. She was in her daughter's house, in her daughter's kitchen, in the 8th month of the knee problem that was slow to improve and was real. And she had told people about it, and they had come to appointments and asked questions, and gotten her ibuprofen without her asking, and sat near her and said, "Are you doing okay?" And she had said yes when yes was true, and no when no was truer, and the joke when the joke was the right thing, and the real thing when the real thing was needed. She was still funny. She was also heard. Both things. She found Emma in the kitchen on a Wednesday evening in February. Emma was home for a long weekend, midterms, a break in the schedule, something she'd worked out. She was sitting at the table with her laptop, and she looked up when Norma came in. "Hey," she said. "Hey," Norma said. She poured water. She stood at the counter for a moment. "How's the semester going, actually?" Emma's face shifted slightly. The shift that happened now when Norma asked the real version of a question, the recognition of it, the brief adjustment required to answer honestly. "Hard," Emma said. "The program is harder than last year. I'm keeping up, but I'm tired." "Are you asking for help where you need it?" A pause. "Getting better at that," Emma said. "Good," Norma said. She sat down across from her granddaughter. "I have a joke about midterms if you want one," she said. "But I also have coffee and approximately no other plans." Emma looked at her. "Coffee," she said, "and then the joke." Norma got up and put the kettle on. She was 74 years old, and her knee hurt. And it was February, and she was in her daughter's kitchen, and her granddaughter was at the table, and she was going to make coffee and tell a joke, and also, if it came up, say the true thing. Both things. The kettle started its low build toward boiling. The kitchen was warm. If this story landed somewhere for you, if you recognized the dinner table role, or the joke that hid the real thing, or the person in your life who makes everything easier and might be paying for it, leave a word in the comments. You don't have to explain it. Sometimes just naming it is enough. We'll be here.